Welcome everyone, I'm Spiro. Thanks for tuning in. Here on this channel and at activistpost.com, we have been covering how Bill Gates is deeply connected to this coronavirus situation, which is and has been not only falling in line directly with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, but has accelerated them under the UN's 2030 agenda. Now, everything from global vaccination, which by far is a primary objective, as it has been openly admitted by Bill Gates himself, which I have shown here on this channel many times, but it's also admitted in this clip that I'm about to share with you. Now, in this clip, they are openly discussing how to overcome vaccine hesitancy. In other words, how to convince parents who do not wish to vaccinate their children to go ahead and get the shots. Now, they hold entire seminars all the time trying to figure out how to achieve their global vaccination agenda. And you will see in this clip that the presenter admits he's going to stay away from the mandatory policy, as he calls it, which his acknowledgement of this policy does, in my opinion, absolutely verify its existence, that there is a mandatory vaccination policy hidden away from the public that has not yet been rolled out. But what he does state and openly admit is that 14 out of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals revolve around vaccination.
I'm not going to talk about mandatory policy and where I stand on that point. It may well come up later, kind of hoping it does in the questions, because then I'll share with you my rather one-sided opinion on that. So what could be a better return on investment, Rob? What could we invest our resources in if we're not going to tackle hesitancy? If hesitancy is not to blame, how are we going to deal with this in the future? Well, I would argue that now is the time where we need a shift in perspective. Immunization is a best buy. 14 of 17 SDGs are addressed through immunization. And when we talk about universal health coverage, we talk about primary health care, we talk about health security. Without immunization, there's none of that.
Another United Nations Sustainable Development Goal we have covered here on this channel is the Global Digital ID. Again, an operation that Bill Gates is at the center of, as he openly has partnered with and is funding the United Nations and ID 2020 to achieve this goal, which directly ties into the new digital financial system of control, which many people believe will lead to the mark of the beast type scenario, where your entire life will be embedded into your body, delivered through a vaccine, and it will hold your medical records, your wallet, your keys, your credit score, your passport, virtually everything about you in a conveniently digitally tracked form on the blockchain, supported by 5G and AI. Now, for more information about this, please see my previous reports. I have covered it in detail with documents and facts to back it up. But for now, I want to go ahead and move on to another United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, which is number 2 on its list, and it's titled End Hunger, Achieve Food Security and Improve Nutrition, and Promote Sustainable Agriculture. Now, I'll admit that that sounds nice. Now, who wouldn't want to end world hunger after all? But this isn't about ending hunger. It's not about helping people. It's about controlling them. This is another United Nations goal that Bill Gates has been actively working to fulfill, and that is control of population's food supply. Henry Kissinger once said, "Control oil and you control nations. Control food and you control people." Now, remember a few years ago, the argument that cow farts were contributing to global warming and therefore cow farts were a threat to humanity and life as we know it?
In Climate Watch now, a new report from the United Nations says climate change is exploiting the world's land at an unprecedented rate.
The report says a combination of human-caused climate change and land use is making food more expensive, scarcer, and even less nutritious.
That footprint, according to today's report, contributes to the 44% of methane emissions that come from agriculture, forestry, and human land use. According to the authors, there has been a major growth in emissions from managed pastures due to increased manure deposition. That's right, cow manure emits methane, which can also come from cow burps, and yes, cow flatulence.
Yeah, that really happened, and it makes no sense at all. But, how long have cows been around? And if their farts were so dangerous, why haven't they already wiped us all out and destroyed life on this planet as we know it, right? So this was basically a UN-backed idea that was largely dismissed because it was a joke, and it didn't really change anything. But the agenda remains, and now we have this virus, which is being blamed for the systematic shutdown of the global food supply chains, including major meat processing plants and distribution centers, causing major disruptions in the food supply chain. Now, because they say workers are testing positive for this virus, they have to shut these plants down. And yes, there are major problems with the tests and the numbers, and I've covered them before. These numbers are being openly inflated, admittedly, and I'm going to be covering them more detailed here coming up with some experts, some medical experts, so stay tuned for that. But don't worry about a thing, because Bill Gates just so happens to have a prepackaged solution that will be hitting the shelves in your grocery stores very soon.
So this is where the cells are being cultured. We have the sterile hoods and the incubators.
The cells the professor is referring to are from cows. She and her team are mimicking the cell's growing environment inside bioreactors. The goal? Generate tissues that ultimately form a steak. Lab-generated steak, meatless or clean meat. This, say industry scientists, will be the next agricultural revolution. Meatless meat is a sustainable and healthy alternative to traditional meat because it cuts greenhouse emissions and land use associated with conventional cattle cultivation.
And this is lab-grown, test tube, fake meat. Yes, you heard right. Not only is Bill Gates funding the global digital ID and the global vaccination programs for the UN, he just so happens to be positioned to benefit from the coming food shortages, which in my opinion are no accident. Now, Gates, through his lab-grown meat and his major push for GMOs globally, is actively pursuing a lightly veiled power grab on behalf of the United Nations to control the world's food supply, which were pre-existing plans hidden within the UN 2030 Agenda and Agenda 21, which both met resistance. But now these plans are being fast-tracked under the guise of this emergency response to this global health pandemic, which has all of the signs of a premeditated, manufactured crisis, which is blanketed, which is covered with the fingerprints of Gates, the United Nations, and a global governance takeover plan, which we are witnessing unfold right before our eyes right now. Now, not only are Bill and Melinda Gates openly pimping GMOs for the UN, they're also funding geoengineering programs, which have a much greater impact on the environment than cow farts do. I can assure you that, and I'm not even a scientist. Now, I hope you're beginning to see how that the climate change agenda is not really about saving the planet from humanity. It is being used as a mechanism of control, a justification to change and control your way of life. And to make sure you do not fall through the cracks, just in case you decide to resist this program, this new system of control, and go off the grid and go live in the woods somewhere or something like that, Bill Gates is also funding a real-time global surveillance network of satellites, which will blanket the Earth in video surveillance that has a 1-second lag time. It's basically going to be real time, 1-second lag time. I don't know about you, but I feel safer already. And of course, it's for your own good. Now, I'd like to end this report by clarifying that people like Bill Gates and Henry Kissinger are not government-elected officials. They are not held accountable through elections which only provide the illusion of choice, basically. These are technocrats who have managed to climb their way up the totem pole to be the front men for this global takeover operation, to consolidate power under the guise of an emergency in which they offer the pre-packaged solutions for the betterment of mankind, or so they say. And if you disagree with them, you will be silenced from the internet and likely be dealt with in the real world. That is, if we wait for someone else to save us, if we do nothing. Now, there is no doubt we are witnessing the end of a new paradigm, which out of the ashes, a new system of control will be born. The window of liberty, the window of opportunity to resist is closing. And it's up to every single one of us, every single one of you listening out there right now to make a difference. All we have to do is resist. Spread the word and resist tyranny in all its forms.